Today we will talk about percent decrease problems. In these problems, there are a couple of things you need to know. You need to be able to recognize the initial amount, the final amount, the amount of decrease, which is going to be, since initial amount is bigger, initial minus the final amount. Then your decrease, percent decrease, then is going to be the amount of decrease divided by your initial amount times 100. You can write this formula one more way. Percent decrease number divided by 100 is going to be decrease divided by initial amount. And what was the decrease amount? Decrease amount was initial minus final. So the final formula that we're talking about is percent decrease over 100 is initial minus final divided by initial. So I'm going to copy that formula one more time over here. Percent decrease over 100 is initial minus final over initial. So let's do a problem that relates to that. The selling price of a home was dropped from $300,000 to $290,000. By what percent did the price drop? So your initial amount was $300,000. So we put that in the initial amount column. The final amount is $290,000. What are they asking? They are asking the decrease rate, which is your N. Now the first thing you need to do is to find the amount of decrease. So your decrease is going to be the difference between initial and final amount. So which is 300,000 minus 290,000. In this case, we are talking about a $10,000 difference. So that is your intermediate step that you need to put in. So the amount of decrease is 10,000. Now we are going to put our proportion together. So what was it? The percent decrease rate over 100 is the decrease amount, which is 10,000, over the initial amount, which is 300,000. You can actually do a couple of simplifications. Then N turns out to be around 3.3%. And what you do is you just go and put that in, and that would be your answer. Now let's do another problem. This one says, I had to take a pay cut of 12% when the company ran into trouble. Initially, I was making $88,000. So your initial amount is $88,000. Now in this case, you do know the rate. It is the 12%. What is it that you don't know? How much am I making now after the cutback? This is what you don't know. That's your N. Well, what I need to do is I need to first calculate the amount of decrease, which happens to be the percent times the initial amount. So what is the percent? In decimal is 0.12. The initial amount is 88,000. So that will give me the amount of decrease that I'm looking for. So we are talking about, when you multiply those two numbers, about $10,560. Now we are going to go and see what we can do with that. So this amount is $10,560. And what will be my decrease then? My decrease is simply going to be 88,000 minus the decrease, which is 10,560. When you subtract those two numbers, you will get 77,400, which is my final amount, which has to go to the final amount column. And in the previous case, I just forgot to circle that. It has to go to the final amount, the rate column. Let's do two more problems so we can practice. All right. They decreased the class size by 5%. What did they just give me? Decrease rate. How many students will now be accommodated in a class that had 25 students? So 25 is my initial amount. To find the amount of decrease, all you have to do is multiply your percent in decimal and your initial amount. When you do that, you will get 1.25 students. But you cannot have quarter of a student, so we're going to round this down to 1 student. So what were they asking me? They're asking me the final amount. Now my decrease is 1 student. So what will be my final amount? 25 minus 1, which is 24. And you can take this number and put it in the final amount column. Let's do another problem. All right, a cookbook was reduced from $28.50 to $15.95. So your initial amount is $28.50. Your final amount is $15.95. So I can go and calculate the amount of decrease. All you have to do is just subtract $28.50 minus $15.95. That will give me a difference of $12.55. So I can go and put that $12.55 here. Now what was it that I wanted to find out? My percent decrease rate. That's what I don't know. Now let's go back to the equation. I'm going to do the equation right here. All right. Now my equation was n over 100 is amount of decrease, which is $12.55, over the initial amount, $28.50. I know that I can use proportions, so I crisscross. $28.50 times n equals 100 times $12.55. And I know to find n, I need to divide both sides by the number that's next to n. So when I do that, I will get n equals 100 times $12.55 divided by $28.50. And that will give me 45, and which is actually given in percent. So the answer is 44%. So I write the n is 44%, which is what I'm looking for. And it has to go to percent decrease column.